Welcome to the PowerPoint lecture, Commas, Your New Best Friends. I'm Margaret Students and I will be leading you through some of the many comma uses. Here they are, and the one thing that I want to make note of in particular is that most of these comma uses begin with to separate or to set off, and that's what commas do. They separate items in a sentence and they also set off items in a sentence. In previous lectures we have discussed compound sentences and what make up those compound sentences, the main clause. The comma plays a role in joining these main clauses to create compound sentences, and you'll notice that the comma works in concert with a coordinating conjunction, one of the fanboys, to make that link between the two main clauses in a compound sentence. And you see examples using but, and, yet, so, for, nor, and or on this screen. We use commas to set off elements in a sentence, and those elements can be words, phrases, and clauses, and we have examples of those here with unfortunately, because I ate a lot, and rushing around madly. All of these elements must be set off with a comma. They are located at the very beginning of the sentence, and they work in all of these cases as adjectives and adverbs. Just as with introductory material in a sentence, we also have groups of words, phrases, and clauses that are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. We signify this by putting commas on both sides of that word group. Often, though, we have word groups that are essential to the meaning of the sentence, and those, whether they're clauses or phrases, those are not encircled with, or bookended is a better way to say it, with commas. We see two examples here of what I'm talking about. We have the sentence, the lady who is our new neighbor used to be a Hooters waitress, and we have Anna, who is my best friend, is a minister who looks like Mae West. I have the dependent clauses underlined that have to be determined whether they're essential or non-essential. It's all about what they're modifying. And in the first sentence, the modification is of the word lady, which is a very generic term, and it's not a specific proper noun. So we need who is our new neighbor to understand who the lady is. In the second sentence, we have who is my best friend describing Anna. Well, we already know specifically who Anna is because her specific name, which is a proper noun, is listed there. So, who is my best friend is almost an aside. You could almost say, Anna, who, oh, by the way, is my best friend, is a minister who looks like Mae West. And that's a good way to determine whether or not you need to put commas around one of these word groups. If you can add in, oh, by the way, and it makes sense, you need to put the commas. When we include lists in our sentences, we separate the items in the list with commas, thus the term items in a series. Always in these lists, the final item is preceded by the conjunction and or. The comma preceding that last item and the conjunction is optional. Just make sure that you're consistent within your document in including or omitting that comma. A specific type of list is what we find with coordinate adjectives. Often we will have a string of adjectives to fine-tune the meaning of the noun they are modifying. In some cases, the adjectives almost seem to modify each other sort of cumulatively. In other cases, we can clearly see that the adjectives separately modify the noun. If they do so, we include a comma. A good way to determine this is to simply insert the word and between the adjectives as you read the sentence to yourself. If and makes sense, put a comma. If it does not, leave the comma out. And let me read a couple of these and you can hear it. In the first example, we need a comma. So I have, a short, handsome man is my type. If I try the technique I just told you, if I said, a short and handsome man is my type, makes sense. We include the comma. Now let's look at the next sentence. We attend a nearby community college. So the two adjectives are nearby and community. So if I read this with the and, listen to how it sounds. We attend a nearby and community college. We can hear immediately that it's awkward. We do not need that comma. Nearby almost modifies community as well as college. The third example is one with the comma needed again. Do you have any self-addressed stamped envelopes? So if we throw in the word and to test our theory, do you have any self-addressed and stamped envelopes? That makes sense. And yes, the comma should be included. We also use commas to set off absolute phrases. Absolute phrases are phrases that modify the entire sentence, and they almost sound by themselves like a sentence, but part of the verb is left out. Look at the samples I have for you. Santana's recording contract was canceled, the band having broken up. So our absolute phrase I have in blue here, and it's describing the whole sentence, modifying the whole sentence, so we set it off with a comma. Here's a more brief absolute phrase. Hands trembling, comma, Margaret opened the ring box. So we have an absolute phrase. It's also introductory material, so we put that comma at the front. Same thing with this third one. All things considered, she performed well. So we have this at the front end of the sentence, and it's an absolute phrase. And if you read these by themselves, the band having broken up, hands trembling, all things considered, we know immediately these are not complete thoughts. These are phrases, but they do a particular job in the sentence, and that's modify the entire sentence. Here's another example of comma setting something off, and we do that when we're expressing contrast or if we're adding interrogative, that means question elements. So we can see clearly that contrast or that move to the question by adding the comma. Make love, comma, not war. Bill, comma, not Margaret, comma, fed the baby. Or finally, you are going to do your exercises, comma, right? So anytime you're showing contrast or setting off a question or interrogative element, add the comma. We also use commas with particular writing conventions, and when I say that, I mean in repeated situations in terms of formal writing or in mathematics. We use commas to separate long numbers, as you see here. We use commas to separate addresses. Notice we're going separating, right? We use commas to separate dates, and then we use commas to set off. So we've got separate and set off. We use commas to set off key parts of friendly letters and parts of business letters as well. In a friendly letter, we use a comma in the salutation, like Dear Audrey, but please note that if we are formalizing, we put a colon instead of a comma. And then also in the closing of a letter, we follow that closing with a comma. So we're setting off those elements, and our reader knows to expect an additional element to follow. I just want to finally mention that sometimes we just have to include a comma to prevent some kind of misreading. Look at the examples. On Monday, morning schedules will be revised. If I move the comma, the meaning of the sentence changes. On Monday morning, schedules will be revised. Two different meanings just with one punctuation mark move. And then we also can use commas to show that something has been omitted. We have an understood word, and we do that. We also do that with apostrophe, so this isn't anything new. The French drink wine, the Germans beer. We've omitted a word in the sentence. Thanks for joining me with Commas, your new best friends.